This is part one of my Le Rive video that I have been promising to make for a really long time. So I will get on with it now, and I hope that this is helpful to you guys. Hello, my affordable fragrance fans. I have been collecting these Le Rive perfumes. I've just been sort of buying them for the last maybe 3 years, like on and off, whenever I see them really cheap on like Destinee or Makeup UK, when I've seen them for a bargain. Sometimes I've bought them just purely out of interest because they're maybe perfumes that have been discontinued and I can't get hold of the real thing, or sometimes because I haven't really enjoyed the real thing too much and I'm wondering if the Le Rive version might be a lighter version. Sometimes because I thought I might like it but I didn't want to pay the real price, and honestly sometimes just purely for the channel, because I'm like, is this going to be an affordable version of something that's expensive, and is it good, and can I suggest it to the people who watch my channel? So I've got a real mixture going on here. I'm going to start with some absolute classics. So this is She Is Mine from La Rive. This is the box. I'll change the setup so we can see the bottle nicely. So She Is Mine is a dupe of YSL, so Yves Saint Laurent's Mon Paris. This is not a perfume that I particularly was ever really into. It's not necessarily my vibe because I do really think of this as a fruit patchouli, and it's very strong in the patchouli. But I was just interested. This is one that people used to wear quite a lot when it first came out. I remember seeing this bottle around quite a lot. Came out in 2016. But I just thought this would be an interesting one to smell. So She Is Mine lists notes of red currant, bergamot and herbal notes in the top, mid notes of strawberry, raspberry, ice cream, pear, rose, violet, lily of the valley, base notes of patchouli, vanilla and musk. There's a fair few things going on here that I knew I wasn't going to love this one, but it was just such a bargain. I thought it'd be interesting to smell it and remind myself of what the original smelled like, and also let you guys know if this is good, if you like those kind of fruit patchoulis. So it's very shampooy, strawberry forward. It does have some sweetness, but there's just a huge amount of patchouli, there's no denying. I feel like this one just isn't as strong as the original, as I normally find. Generally with La Rive perfumes, a lot of them are just a little bit lighter because they're so much cheaper, and obviously they're just easier to wear if they're a bit lighter a lot of the time. If you love really strong ones, then you'd want to go for the original, but this is very strawberry forward to me. I can smell general florals, maybe a little bit of rose, a lot of patchouli and a gentle sweetness. It's not particularly creamy to me, but this is a classic strawberry fruit patchouli. That's what it is. I feel like if you like fruit patchoulis and you like strawberry, you'd really like this one a lot. Probably if you like some of the original Miss Dior's that were fruit patchoulis with loads of strawberries, you'd probably quite like it. So I think She Is Mine is quite a good dupe. I think it's possibly slightly more shampooy than the original, but it's been so long since I've smelt that one, you'll have to take that with a grain of salt. So that's She Is Mine from La Rive. La Rive Taste of Kiss is another fruit patchouli. This is another one where it's a dupe of a perfume that was really popular that I hadn't smelt for literally years, and I was like, well, this is actually, sometimes buying these, it sounds mad, but sometimes buying these is cheaper than getting a sample from somewhere if you include postage and packing. So Taste of Kiss is a dupe for La Nuit Trésor from Lancôme. So Taste of Kiss has top notes of pear, tangelo and bergamot, mid notes of strawberry, vanilla orchid, passion fruit and black rose, base notes praline, caramel, incense, vanilla, lychee, patchouli, coffee, coumarin, licorice and papyrus. Now, I think that in terms of fruit patchoulis, this is one that is a little bit more mature. I feel like the last two have a very similar fruit patchouli feel, but She Is Mine smells more shampooy, fruity, a little bit more youthful. This one, because of those base notes, I think smells a little bit darker, a little bit more nighttime, a little bit more sexy. You really get a little bit of that praline and caramel. You get a little bit of the incense and coffee. And I am a massive fan of licorice, so this is a little bit more up my street. However, because I don't like fruit patchoulis, I think the mixture of the strawberry and the patchouli is what kind of makes me not love this perfume. I think if it didn't have that patchouli, but it had that innocence and licorice and caramel with pear, I would just really be digging this because I can smell there's something in it that I think is really beautiful. But for me, the patchouli just makes this a little bit too fruit chuli for my personal liking. However, I think if you like a darker fruit chuli and something a little bit sweeter, a little bit more sexy, I think this is such an exceptionally good value perfume because it's still not like massively strong, but this is really noticeable. I think it wears really nicely. This is such a nice perfume. I'm not, by the way, sponsored by Le Rive. I paid for all of these myself. This is just my personal opinion. But I think this is one of their really, really, really good perfumes. I think it's an excellent dupe for La Nuit Trésor. And I think because of that caramel and that praline, this is like super wearable in terms of a fruit julie. I think this one's really good. I think this is one of the best value that they offer. So yeah, that's Le Rive Taste of Kiss. So here we have another fruit julie. This one is Eternal Kiss. So you can see it's got this cool bottle. On Fragrantica, they said this came out in 2000, but I don't think that's accurate. I think this has been released much more recently because I think this is a dupe for Jean Paul Gaultier's Scandal. Now, trust me when I tell you, this liquid did not used to be this colour. This has been in my cupboards for, I don't know, maybe like a year now, I'd say. I've had this one down in like a nice, well, it's not a cupboard, a cold box under my wardrobe. This is quite a strong perfume, and this is another one of those that, man, if this did not have patchouli in it, I would be all over this because it's a honey perfume. And yet another one that has licorice in, and I'm always really sad that there's so much patchouli in these because, man, again, I would be loving this. So the notes in Eternal Kiss are top notes of blood orange and mandarin orange, middle notes of honey, orange blossom and gardenia, jasmine and peach, base notes of beeswax, caramel, licorice and patchouli. So I have had a couple of dupes, one of which I didn't realise was a dupe until I got it, of Jean Paul Gaultier Scandal. One of them was called Shock in Scent by the Police. It's in a purple bottle, and it is one of the most powerful perfumes that I've ever had in my flat. It was way too strong. It was insane. So Eternal Kiss is a little bit more manageable. It's fruity, it's sweet, it's syrupy, it's honey. I'm getting a little bit, I'm getting those base notes for sure. I'm getting beeswax, caramel, licorice and patchouli for sure. I'm definitely getting some blood orange. I'm definitely getting honey, a little bit of peach, and probably I'd say orange blossom is the thing I'm getting most here. It's not a million miles away from something like Girl of Now. I feel like it's in that same general realm, but it's less creamy because it doesn't have the almond. But it's very honeyed, it's very pretty, it's really nice. And again, I would definitely be wearing this perfume if it wasn't for the fact that the patchouli was a little bit too strong for me. But I think this is such a good alternative to Scandal because do you think that sometimes Scandal can be a little bit overwhelming to people? It can be a bit too strong. This is a lovely, slightly lighter interpretation of it. And you can just see from how bright this liquid has become, or how orange. It's very sweet and honeyed. So yeah, I think Eternal Kiss is another one that's actually very good. So Eternal Kiss, definitely worth checking out if you like Scandal. So here we have quite a famous one. This is La Rive Fleur de Femme, which comes in this box. So Fleur de Femme is a very, very nice dupe of Dior Poison Girl. I think this is actually maybe outrageous to say, but I think this might actually be slightly nicer than the original Poison Girl because this has a cherry note in it that isn't in the original, and I think that balances this out because this is, and the same with Poison Girl, they're very balsamic perfumes. I think the original actually does list Peru balsam. This one doesn't list that. This lists almond, sour cherry, bitter orange, and peach in the top. Middle notes of sandalwood, jasmine, neroli, patchouli, rose, and cedar. And then base notes of vanilla, tonka bean, and musk. This, I think, has a little bit more of a tiny bit of a soapy quality than the original and a tiny bit less of the balsamic quality. So when you mix in as well that extra sour cherry to balance out the bitter orange fruitiness, I actually think this one might be a bit nicer. So the original Poison Girl for me was always a little bit too balsamic, a little bit too vinegary, a little bit therefore like kind of piercing to me. But I did have for a while the EDT, and that was like a kind of sheerer, slightly less balsamic and slightly more soapy version of the original. And I really liked that one. But I ended up keeping the Poison Girl Unexpected just because I really like the ginger in that. My husband really likes that one. I had a 100ml bottle of it and you need to respray it quite a lot. So I was like, I'll keep that one. I passed on the EDT and I knew I had this one. But I have to say, the longer this one's been sitting, the more delicious it smells. The almond has got sweeter and stronger. The vanilla's coming through a little bit more. I'm not getting much in the way of patchouli. And I have to say, it's very pretty. This is one that when I was testing it, when I first got it, my husband said he liked it. And because this one has sweetened up a little bit while it's been in my box, this is another one that I might keep hold of. I might try it again, see how my skin reacts, and see whether it goes as balsamic as the original. So I find that none of the Poison Girl perfumes are particularly strong, but the original is certainly the strongest, being an EDP. It's Tolu Balsam that's in the original, not Peru Balsam, but Tolu Balsam. Yeah, I mean, I just think this is ever so slightly fruitier, ever so slightly sweeter, and ever so slightly less, I have to say it, slightly less vinegary than the original. And therefore, I think this is kind of a prettier version. And it's so affordable. It's a decent strength. It's an okay longevity. It's not like a beast, but I don't really find that any of those modern poisons are really beasts anyway. Yeah, I think this one's great. I think this is like a really, really good Rive perfume. So if you're interested in Poison Girl, you could save yourself a lot of dollar and get this one, and you might like it even more. So that's Fleur de Femme from Rive. So while we're on the subject of Dior Poison dupes, this is Rive Sweet Hope. This is just one of their little bottles. If I can ever get hold of one of their little 30mls rather than buying a full-size bottle, that's always what I try to do. That can be a bit tricky sometimes, but anyway, so Sweet Hope is a dupe for Hypnotic Poison from Christian Dior. And this is the perfume that made me actually appreciate and then get a bottle of the real thing. Because, well, actually, I had this. I started to really like the way that this dried down. And then I got a sample of the original. And then I ended up with a bottle of original, just a little one. But I've kept hold of this because I like this too. So I would say this is a nice dupe of the original. I think the thing with Hypnotic Poison is that it has a very marzipan-y dry down. It has a marzipan-y vanilla. And I think that's the biggest difference between Sweet Hope and that one. I feel like Sweet Hope, it definitely starts off smelling like Hypnotic Poison. It starts off quite light and then gets much stronger. It has that really famous Hypnotic Poison root beer kind of smell, or in the UK something more like dandelion and burdock, or like sarsaparilla, you know, those kind of root based soda smells. So it starts off with that for sure, but then it dries down and it gets vanillic and cozy the way that Hypnotic Poison does. But I feel like the vanilla in Sweet Hope is just closer to the classic vanilla from Rive. And Rive do have a perfume that is just a plain vanilla, which I've completely forgotten the name of. I gave that one to my friend. That's why I don't have it here. But it's a very nice, simple, slightly floral, ever so slightly marzipan-y vanilla. but it's not as marzipan-y or almondy as the one that's in Hypnotic Poison. So if you find the original Hypnotic Poison to be too marzipan-y, you might like this version better, genuinely. And to be honest, like, this one's not particularly strong. It's stronger on skin than it is on paper for sure. And it does, as I said, get stronger. But the new version of Hypnotic Poison, which is the one I have, and to be honest, the one I like, that's also not very strong anymore. So they're not that different in terms of the strength or longevity. Anyway, the notes here for Sweet Hope are top notes of coconut, plum and apricot, mid notes of Brazilian rosewood, tuberose, caraway and jasmine, lily of valley and rose, base notes of vanilla, almond, sandalwood and musk. So what I said, this starts off with that root beery kind of smell. You've got this kind of strange, sweet, sort of slightly herby, slightly spicy smell. You've definitely got a tiny bit of tuberose, like taken from the original Poison, but this isn't really as bubblegummy as that. It's not as noticeable. You've got a kind of powdery woodiness, you've got the powdery almond, and then you've got that yummy vanilla. And it's just generally a floral bouquet. It's very pretty, it's very nice, it's definitely one that's worth having. I think if you like Hypnotic Poison, you'd probably really like this. So yeah, that is Sweet Hope from La Rive. La Rive Secret Dream. This is another one where I'm not entirely sure why I got this one. It was kind of just, again, loads were ridiculously cheap prices, so I just chucked it into the basket. Secret Dream. Can you guess what it's duping? if you see the bottle, you'll probably guess it's a different shape, but the colour might gave it away. So Secret Dream. So can you tell what it is yet? Secret Dream is of course a dupe of Britney Spears' Fantasy. I don't know that they make this one anymore, but to be honest, like, I'm not sure that it's really a necessary thing to make because Fantasy is so affordable. But I had read some people saying that this is like a closer to the original version of Fantasy. So the notes are, there's so many notes here. Top notes of tropical fruits, red berries, kiwi, lychee, apple, melon, mandarin orange, orange, quince and lemon. Deep breath. Middle notes of white chocolate, cupcake, jasmine, red fruits, heliotrope, orchid, sandalwood and violet. Base notes of vanilla, musk, orris root, woodsy notes, cedar, benzoin and vetiver. So I'm going to spray this one out because I've had quite a lot of experience with Fantasies recently. This oddly has a weird little kind of donut shape for its lid. Very unusual and strange. So it just pops on like that. Yeah, Secret Dream. It does smell like Fantasy. I almost think though, this does possibly smell a little bit less shampooey than the current version of Fantasy. But essentially it just smells like Fantasy. I wouldn't suggest trying to find this one over just buying the current formulation of Fantasy. I feel like it has that kind of slightly plasticky cupcake smell. It's got the kiwi. It's got other fruity notes. And it has a little bit of that shampooey quality. Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe the vanilla and white chocolate are a little bit stronger in this one. But that might just be because this has been in a box for maybe 3 years. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the original Fantasy, and part of it is the shampooey feel. I actually recently got Pure Fantasy Elixir, and that one is more up my street. It has a little bit of that Fantasy DNA, but it's creamier, it's more vanillic, it's tonkery. So yeah, I mean, like I said, just get the original one as this is no longer in production, unless you see this for a good price. But yeah, it's basically a slightly creamier version of Fantasy, but it definitely really smells like Fantasy. It's a good dupe. What can I say? Secret Fantasy is a good dupe, or Secret Dream even is a good dupe of Fantasy from Britney Spears. Next up we have one of the more recent La Rives. This is Elegant Woman, and again I was very happy. I mean, this literally cost me about £2, which is the only reason I bought this. I was actually trying to get my Makeup UK haul up so I could get a free postage, so I added this guy in. I already knew, not because this was listed anywhere at the time, but I knew from looking at the notes what this was going to be. So before I tell you what this is a dupe of, how about I just tell you the notes and you'll probably guess. The top notes are saffron and jasmine, the mid notes are ambergris and amberwood, the base notes are fir resin and cedar. Any guesses? Ding, ding, ding. This is a dupe for Baccarat Rouge 540 from Maison Francis Kirk de Jean, and it's actually a pretty good dupe. I personally, I can't wear this because the same with the original, has a lot of the modern aroma chemicals that really just literally smell like chemicals to me. This one has a lot of the tarry aroma chemical. That's what I always call it, but it's one that smells like tarmac to me. So it's got like this kind of burning rubber, burning wood smell. And, you know, Baccarat Rouge also famously, a lot of people think it smells like a dentist office. I think that's the fur. But in terms of smelling like Baccarat Rouge, this really smells like Baccarat Rouge. I do think, I didn't spray this one out because I know that that tarry aroma chemical is so hard to get rid of once I've sprayed it. It lasts forever, basically. But just sniffing it from here, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a classic Baccarat Rouge DNA. Personally, for me, my favourite kind of take on that Baccarat Rouge profile is Guess Seductive Red, because it doesn't have those aroma chemicals. It's got a cherry and almond smell about it, but it has that kind of burnt cotton candy smell that you get in Baccarat Rouge. It's delicious. However, if you want something that smells more woody and more kind of fir tree and, you know, a little bit more like the original Baccarat Rouge, this is a really good shout. It really does smell like Baccarat Rouge. So it's not quite as strong, but at the same time, it is quite long lasting, this one, and it is because of those kind of amber woody and classic long lasting aroma chemicals that are the ones that I can't get on with. But yeah, I mean, for the price, this is amazingly good value if you like that original Baccarat Rouge scent. So yeah, that's Elegant Woman from Le Rive. This guy is Love Dance from Le Rive, and I don't have the box of this anymore because this is one that's, again, just in my permanent collection. This guy is an Escada dupe, and I think specifically it's Rocking Rio, and it does smell very similar to what I remember Rocking Rio being like. I think I had I had a little mini set of these perfumes that I have a feeling my dad got me from duty free, either that or I asked him for them, I can't remember. But I had Ibiza Hippie, I had Rocking Rio, and a couple of others from that period of time that I can't really remember, maybe Pacific Paradise and one more. So this guy, I keep this because, to be honest, I have totally grown out of that tropical cocktail Escada summer perfume smell. I've totally grown out of it. I don't really want to smell like that anymore. But I am keeping this around for layering with the Kayali Sweet Banana. Is it Maui Sweet Banana? Might be Maui. Because that one, I like the banana. I like elements of it, but it turns so sweet and vanillic when it dries down that I think it changes, it loses that kind of juicy fruitiness that you get from the pear and the top of it. And I wanted something tropical to go over the top, and so I've kept hold of this one because this also has banana. So Love Dance is top notes of coconut, peach and pomegranate, middle notes of banana and pineapple, base notes of musk, amber and sandalwood. Does it smell quite a lot like Rocking Rio? Yes, it does. It really does. I get a hint of banana, I get a hint of these pineapple, and I get some coconut, but it just smells like a fruity cocktail, to be honest. It doesn't smell particularly strongly of banana. It doesn't smell particularly strongly of any of the fruits. It just smells like a tasty, juicy, extremely sweet fruit cocktail. So that one's kind of fun, and that just stays in my collection because of that, you know. That's Love Dance from Le Rive. So here is my little mini bottle. I think this is just a 20ml of Le Rive's Destinee, I think is how you would say it. This is a dupe of Yves Saint Laurent Libre, the original Libre, the Libre Eau de Parfum. This is a perfume that I've never been able to fall in love with because although I absolutely truly adore lavender in perfumes, I don't necessarily always love orange blossom, and I think the orange blossom in here is extremely strong. Sometimes I find this one a bit aggressively sharp. I think it's extremely soapy, even though there is definitely a vanillic sweetness in the base. So I don't own any of the Libres, which kind of breaks my heart because I absolutely love the bottles. I'm really looking forward to smelling the new vanilla one to see if that, you know, might be one that works for me. But also the Libre range seem to have a little bit of a aroma chemical situation that doesn't really agree with me, which is why I have this version from Rive, because I think it's a little bit less of what I find a bit screechy and overwhelming, although I do think this is one of the strongest Rives I have. It's very noticeable, it lasts for ages, it's soapy in quite a soft way. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of my favourite version of that Libre smell. So the notes in Destinee are top notes of mandarin orange, blackcurrant, petitgrain, middle notes of lavender, orange blossom and jasmine, base notes vanilla, musk and ambergris. And I think that this one's a really good one. You should be able to see the bottle that you actually get this in. And what I have realised actually is that recently Rive have been changing a lot of their bottles, so you might have to just go by the name and not the bottle that you see in these videos, because they've definitely changed loads of them. But this I think is a really good value version of Libre. I think it's a little less screechy than the original. It's obviously not as sweet as Le Parfum or the Intense. But again, those are ones that there's elements I really like, but there is just something a little bit chemically that I don't love. It would be great if Rive came out with like a really honeyed vanillic version of this. That would be amazing, because I'd love a Le Parfum or an Intense take to see what they did with it. But I just think this is a really good one. So this is one of my higher recommendations for the Rive scents, even though this is not one of my favourite profiles. As you can see, I've used a decent amount of my 20ml. So when I get in the mood for this, then I do really enjoy it. So that's Destinee from Rive. Next up is a perfume that I don't have the box for, or at least I do have it somewhere, but I haven't really got time to go through all my boxes and find it. But this is just part of my permanent collection, so that's why it's not in this box. This is Rive Wave of Love, this fantastic purple liquid. This is a dupe of Eclat d'Arpège from Lanvin, and it's a really good dupe. It's such good value for money, because the original isn't very strong, doesn't last very long. This one's got about the same strength and longevity, but it's about £7 for, I think these are 90ml bottles or something like that. So you just get more for your money, even though they're really very similar. So this one is lilac, lemon and black elder in the top, mid notes of tea, wisteria, peony, peach and osmanthus, base notes musk, amber and cedar. It really smells like Eclat d'Arpège. It is also, to my nose, a much nicer version of the general profile from Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue. I find Light Blue to smell quite chemically, quite masculine. There's a lot of bitter woods in that. I just don't like that perfume. This is a tiny bit more feminine because of those purple florals, but it still smells like a very light summer tea perfume. You could call it a gym scent. It's really refreshing. I really only wear this in summer because I think it smells best in summer. I don't really love this when it's colder weather, but in hot weather it smells incredible. And I think Rive do actually do a proper dupe of Light Blue, but I would never buy that because I just really know that I don't like Light Blue. And I do feel like Eclat d'Arpège is such a similar profile, but so much nicer, like a much better version. So yeah, Wave of Love, absolutely lovely. So I'm going to have to cut there because otherwise this video is going to go on literally forever. And I will be back with part 2 as soon as possible. Let me know down below in the comments if you enjoyed this video, if you like any of these Rives, what your favourites are. Let me know if there's anything that you're looking forward to seeing if I have in the next video. Alright guys, until the next time, bye bye.